Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television, and our first conversation is about to begin. We did tell you at the beginning of the program that today one of the conversations we'll be having is voiceover artistry. And I did, I cracked a joke with Joy earlier on that does it mean that if you do have a good voice, then automatically you can be a voiceover artist or a voiceover talent? I'm sure that is a big no. And so a lot of people also do not know that voiceover has a lot of professionalism attached to it. It's a skill, and a skill that needs to be honed. You can't just go and do anything. Okay, we do have a guest in the house this morning, and together we'll be taking a trip on this journey. And again, perhaps at the end of this conversation, we'll know more about, not more, we'll know that voiceover is serious business. Okay, Wale Bams is joining us on the program today. He's joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Wale.
Good morning, Greenball. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. All right, Joy and I. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Joy.
Okay.
Hi.
Right. So, Wale, voiceover. A lot of people just assume that voiceover is just voiceover. Voiceover is just voicing, or voiceover is just, talking a script. So you are a professional in that field. And so when you say voiceover, what exactly are we talking about?
Okay, so simply put, voiceover is the art of bringing or giving life to ideas, words, or messages through the use of the human voice. That's the simple definition.
Okay.
It's bringing ideas to life via the use of the human voice.
Okay. Can I quickly just jump in here? Should we start getting worried about this human voice and this AI voice? Because I like the fact that you did say that human voice. So should we start getting worried?
There's the threat of AI. I wouldn't exactly consider it a threat.
Okay.
The only issue is people tend to navigate that, they tend to use AI in a way that harms voiceover artists, in the sense that they tend to be shady with contracts. People do not state clearly.
Okay.
And that's one of the challenges we're experiencing in the voiceover world on a global scale now.
Okay.
We're having to thoroughly vet contracts, be meticulous about looking through contracts, because you do voiceover work, it seems like it's for something that's just short term.
Okay.
Only for you to figure out that your voice is being cloned and used in a whole other country, and it really is crazy. But yeah, that's the world we live in right now.
All right. Are there different classifications of voiceover works?
Of course, there's several types of voiceover. We have the most popular one is commercial voiceover. But aside commercial voiceovers, we have ADR, that's automatic dialogue replacements. We have promo voiceovers, that's the one they're usually very short for shows, maybe to advertise kids' shows. We have audiobooks. That's for people that do not like to read hard copy. You could have, just like I have headphones on, you could be listening to a really sweet and smooth voice reading you a story. And usually people tend to subscribe more to audiobooks than reading actual books, because a lot of people find it hard to concentrate while reading books. So some people enjoy audiobooks. So there's several genres of voiceovers, several of them. It's not just commercials.
Okay.
There's also one for animation, right?
Yes. So there's animation.
As well.
Right, so because there are different genres, for voiceovers, and can everybody or can anybody be a voiceover artist? And so are there required voice textures? Are there required bass lines generally for voiceover artists? Or if you think you do have a good voice, then automatically you can just jump into a voice studio and go ahead to record voiceovers?
Okay, so there's a saying in the school where I trained, the Voiceover Academy. Shout out to the Voiceover Academy where I trained. It says
every voice will sell.
Voice, but only certain voices sell.
Right.
So as much as every single person has a voice, there's certain voices that you cannot but stop when you hear them. You know, there's just that extra thing to their voices that just makes you want to listen to them. All
Okay.
right, and that's really the edge that voiceover artists have. You could have a voice, you could have a good voice, but you have to be taught how to hone the skill of telling stories or interpreting characters through that voice. It's not just enough to have a voice. You can't just say, because I have a voice, I can do voiceovers now. It's really not like that.
Okay.
There has to be intentional training. You have to understand uh, what your voice is best suited for. For instance, naturally, I tend to get projects that are along the lines of commercials, narrations, documentaries, because that's what my voice is naturally
Good
suited
for.
for.
Okay.
So I do more of those jobs. For some people, they're naturally animated. I
Okay.
have friends who are in the current Iyanu cartoon showing on Cartoon Network, and it's also showing in Nigeria right now. It's the latest rave of the moment. They have this animatedness to their voices, and as such, they get a lot more of animation work.
Okay.
So you have to be trained. It's important that you get trained. It's not enough to just have a voice. So if
Okay.
you think that because you have a voice you can do voiceover, please, I want you to
Rethink.
that thought.
Have a rethink.
You know,
As soon as possible.
you know, I can
Yes.
also link this to singing. You know, it's not just because you can open your mouth and just sing and you say
Of
you are a
course.
singer.
Right.
There are things you need to learn, breath control and all that. So for voiceover artistry, what are the basic skills that one needs?
Okay. For voiceover artistry, of course, once you feel like you have a voice that could tell anybody at all, everybody needs to be trained on their voices. A lot of people don't even understand the power of their voices.
Right.
But you have to be interested. There has to be that interest. I think the interest is key. You have to be interested enough to want to discover the possibilities there are to your voice. Just like me, so all my life, especially at a point when puberty hit, I realized that my voice got deeper and deeper, and I was getting compliments from people. And it was very interesting to me. So in 2019, I decided I'm going to actually take this intentional and go and train and figure out what possibilities there are to my voice.
Okay.
Because in training, I got to know that, oh, this voice that you have, beyond just talking to people, you can actually make money, you can make an income from it. You
Right.
can read stories to people. And then from that training, I was able, it was really eye-opening for me. So I think the fundamental thing is for you to be interested enough to want to learn the power there is to your voice. If you feel like you've been getting compliments, or even just by yourself, you don't have to wait for the compliments. If you just feel like there's something extra
Okay.
to your voice, you feel like there's something special to it, please, as soon as possible, get trained so you can understand
Okay.
the power to your voice, and then
Right. So let me take a few of what you just said. The fact that you realized that you had, well, your voice for you was unique and you needed to find, also a niche for what your voice could do.
Yes.
Do people really understand the fact that, some will have this idea at the back of their minds that I can actually voice anything or everything? So at what point do people need to realize that their voices are created for different genres or different things? Just like Joy gave an example earlier, even in singing, there are different parts, that you can sing as an individual. So how do people get to that level where they can then classify their voices and look at what is best or the area that best suits their voices?
All right, so thank you for the question. Like I said, it would still circle back to training.
Okay.
If you get proper training, like I said, I can vouch for the Voiceover Academy in Lagos where I trained. There's also a studio in the US, but when you get trained, you will be told, you'll be profiled.
Okay.
You'll be told that these are the things that your voice is best suited for.
Right.
These are the things you would naturally attract. It doesn't mean you should confine yourself to that box, but these are the things that your voice is best suited for, based off research. So it's important that you get training. You can't just rely on the fact that, oh, I have a great voice. People tell me I have a great voice, and so I can just do anything and everything with my voice. You would be lost and
Right.
really quick.
Okay.
So get trained, join a community of people who can help you grow on your journey, and then it will be a game changer for you. That's really going to be the game changer.
Okay.
Okay, for beginner voiceover artists now, I want you to talk about the common
Yes.
mistakes that they make. And then are there things that one can do that can
Help you
damage
save your voice or damage your voice.
damage your voice? Like for singing now, sorry, I always go back to singing. They'll tell you don't take cold water. So are there things, do's and don'ts?
Well, for a lot of beginner voiceover artists, there's, like I said, the first and very obvious one is lack of training. So they just go into it anyhow and they just move however they like. Then there's also the challenge of voiceover artists not using the proper equipment.
Okay.
You want to record it and you feel like because you have a great voice, you can just use your phone. In the voiceover world, you would not go very far if you're not focused on the quality of the work that comes out of your work.
Your
You
voice,
have to be
okay.
focused on the type of, the quality of work that comes out. You have to understand that if you do not have a home studio yet, you should pay to use a studio with professional microphones,
Okay.
a treated space, so that your voice comes out well. You should also understand that you should show up confidently. If you're not confident in your voice, there are a lot of newbie voiceover artists that say, I don't like how my voice sounds. If you do not like how your voice sounds, there's no way you'll be able to sell it. I love my voice. I know that I have a great voice. That's why I'm able to communicate. That's why you're able to trust me with your brand, to sell your brand. So you have to love your voice.
Okay.
You have to get trained. You also have to. There's the other challenges as beginner voiceover artists. Even after training, some people just take the trainings and then after the trainings they just go to sleep. You have to be intentional about putting yourself out there. A lot of people have to know that you do this thing called voiceovers. All right. On social media, every other day, I'm out there making videos, talking to people. My voice is almost everywhere on my socials. So it's very intentional.
Okay.
Because I want people to know that I do voiceovers. I want people to hear my voice. I want people to get acquainted with my voice. So
Right.
after getting trained, it's important for you to understand that you have to be intentional about putting yourself out there. Putting yourself out there intentionally,
Okay.
so that people get acquainted with your voice, and then those who would require your service would reach out to you.
Right. While
I think
it,
those are some
The other question.
okay, the other
So what are
question.
things to do to avoid vocal fatigue
Okay,
that
so
could damage your
things
voice?
to avoid vocal fatigue. Well, there's no one rule fits all for this. Different people have different things. Some people say I don't drink cold water. I take cold water sometimes.
I don't believe that thing.
Sort of like, but ideally, you could work with a vocal coach to understand the intricacies that apply to your voice.
Okay.
It's also important for you to know that if you're going to be recording certain projects for a long time, you should pace yourself. Some people just jump at everything.
Yeah.
And your voice can get strained. If you take on projects for too long and you strain your voice, even from talking alone, talking for extended hours, you just find that your voice, you will not be able to use your voice for a while. When you have projects that are voluminous, you want to pace yourself. You want to ensure that you don't take on more than
You can chew.
And then you also exactly. You also want to be careful not to what's the word now? You want to be careful not to my apologies. You want to be careful not to
Perhaps overstress your voice
take on
too much.
You don't want to overstress your voice. You also want to be careful about the things that you take in
Okay.
to your
System.
Because some people eat any and everything. If you eat any and everything, at some point you will have issues.
Right.
If you take a lot of things that have to do with fatty acids and stuff, in due time, the tone, the texture of your voice will shift. So you have to be careful about the kind of food you eat, the kind of things. So at some point in my career, I noticed I used to have a lot of acid reflux. And that was because I was taking a lot of carbonated drinks and whatnot. And so I had to cut that out completely. Currently,
Okay.
I don't take carbonated drinks. I take just water, juice, and that's it. So just you just have to understand your voice, probably work with your doctor to understand the intricacies there are to your voice, and then you'll be fine.
Right. So now, because voiceover is a work of art, and let's
Yes.
look at the language aspect. For me, it's
Okay.
such a big issue because at the moment we're gradually having a problem with our local languages, and there are a lot of fears that they could also go into extinction. I know you do voiceover in
Yes.
Yoruba. I know you
Yes, I
speak
do.
Yoruba very well. So let's talk,
Very well.
in that aspect. And then, are you really worried as to how far we really can sustain our local languages when it comes to voiceovers? Because also there have been issues, especially with the Igbo language, where you have various translations. Joy can probably also speak to that fact, where you have Abia Igbo or you have Igbo from Imo, and then you have issues with names, pronunciations, and all of that. So what are your fears when it comes to our local dialects in the world of voiceovers?
Okay, so with regard to local dialects in the world of voiceovers, I'm not particularly scared. Why? We tend to judge um, a nation based on the bubble that you're in most times. A lot of us, especially in the metropolitan cities, say Lagos, Abuja, we tend to think that, oh, because a lot of us speak it less, then it feels like our languages are going extinct. You find that if you travel to some of these villages, at the grassroots, these people still speak the
The
language. They still
language,
speak it to their
right.
children. Exactly. It's just in this metropolitan cities that it seems like it's dying up on, and maybe in diaspora. And now the beauty of it is we have Yoruba language teachers that teach both in Nigeria and teach to the diaspora as well. You just have to be interested enough to want to learn. As long as you're interested enough to want to learn, I promise you there will always be people ready to teach you. Just then at individual levels, especially those of us that are considered the elite, you should make conscious efforts to ensure that we teach it to our children. At least your children would learn English in school. Why not speak Yoruba to your children at home?
Right.
Speak Igbo to your children at home. Speak Hausa to them at home. Because one way or the other, they're going to learn to speak English.
Right.
And I think statistically, children get to learn languages as
They're
early as,
formative
I think,
from
exactly,
five,
and their
yeah.
formative years, I think before five, they
Right.
have the capacity to
To
learn as much as
store up.
two, three, four, five languages. Exactly. So let's just be intentional about passing on that knowledge to our children. But about it going extinct, I don't believe it will be going extinct anytime soon. As long as there's the interest and the intentional effort to want to learn.
Okay.
And it's a huge edge. Take for instance, I do English voiceovers and I do Yoruba voiceovers.
Right.
The English space, to be honest, is very saturated. My edge is that apart from English,
You speak.
you
speak
speak
Yoruba.
Yoruba. So
And that's an edge.
Yeah.
Right.
exactly. That's an extra edge. And it's an untapped market. It's a wildly untapped market. So anyone out there looking to get into voiceovers, if you're thinking, I want to enter English, well, your chances of getting it's a big fish. I mean, it's a big pond, and you're going to be a small fish if you're
Right.
doing English. But if you're considering other languages, you're going to be a big fish in a small pond. So you
Right.
should consider learning your language so you have an extra edge, and you will get to earn more with your voice. You get to do so much more with your voice. So I think as long as you're interested and you're intentional, there are no boundaries. Really.
That's just one big orijo that he's just given right now. So,
Yeah.
Joy, you were going to.
Okay, so for someone who is new,
Yes.
to the voiceover industry, how do you place value on yourself and on your voice? And then what are the challenges that are peculiar to the voiceover industry?
Okay, so for someone that's new to the voiceover space, like I said, what's most important is that as soon as possible, get trained. There are so many academies. There's the Voiceover Academy. There's the Voiceover Workshop. You can follow them on IG and check them out. Get yourself trained. If you're not available to be trained physically. I know that they are virtual care trained. In the period of your training, you will be equipped with the right knowledge on how to place the right value on yourself. You understand the business of voiceovers, and you will also be inducted into communities. Say, for instance, at the Voiceover Academy, we have a thriving alumni community where we literally hold you by the hand, and at every point of your journey, should you need any help, we're always available to help you. So getting training and joining a community is crucial
Okay.
to your growth as a voiceover artist, as a newbie. It's
Right.
very important. You get trained so you be equipped with the right knowledge, and then you join a community that helps you as you grow along the journey.
So every sector has their challenges, and since you've been in the voiceover
Yes.
business, what would you regard as the biggest challenge for you, and how do you think some of these challenges can be surmounted?
All right, so the biggest challenge for me so far, especially as a voiceover artist in Nigeria, it's not to say that I only do work in Nigeria. I work on a global scale because, of course, we know that the world is a global village. But for Nigeria, it's the biggest challenge in Nigeria is communicating the value of a professional voiceover.
Okay.
Because the impact of voiceovers in Nigeria is still growing. It's not like in the Western world. So some people, to a large extent, in 2025, people are still undermining the value there is to our crafts.
Okay.
People are still wanting to pay peanuts, which is why we need to have these conversations more, which is why I'm grateful for this conversation, because people need to know more. People need to get trained so that they're not just exploited. And someone wanting to pay you as low as 10, 15, 20,000 naira for voiceover in 2025 is preposterous. So it's one of the biggest challenges that we face in Nigeria. And then on a global scale, like I mentioned earlier, there's the challenge of AI and cloning, voice cloning. Now, AI is not the challenge because I consider AI to be a partner. I believe that if you partner with AI, you produce so much more with your voice. The major challenge with AI is the challenge of it cloning your voice and the usage of your voice without you being able to effectively track it.
Right.
But yeah, other than that, AI could be a very effective tool in helping you spread your voice a lot more.
Okay.
So yeah, those are the challenges on a national scale and on a global scale.
Okay. Right. Let's quickly also go over if you get a script, if you get a gig, what's the first thing you do? And have you had to reject a script? If you did, why?
Okay. Thank you for that question. So when you get a script, when I get a script, typically I would like to get my scripts 24 to 48 hours before I'm required to deliver.
Okay.
What you find in all the voiceover is that a lot of times the client requires you to deliver in 24 hours and under. So you really don't have the luxury. Sometimes it's even in less than 10 hours. So what I do is when I get the script, I try to read it, internalize it for the first one to internalize the script, try to understand what is required, the context to the script. If I'm voicing for a brand, I'm trying to understand the brand's voice, the brand's personality. I go on YouTube or go online, search for references that point me to what the brand's voice and the brand's personality is. All of this apply only when you're self-directing, by the way.
Right.
Because for most of my sessions, what I do is I prefer that I get live feedback from my client.
Okay.
So the client will be live on a call with me, so that's a much quicker and easier resolution, because right as you're recording, you're getting the feedback and everybody is happy right there and there. The major work, it comes when you have to self-direct and you really do not have the luxury of getting on the call with the client.
Okay.
So but although if with time it gets better, with each project it gets better and you become a lot more experienced to be able to deliver those projects better.
Okay.
Have I rejected?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, have I rejected any voice? Of course. So the thing with using your voice and voiceovers as a whole is there are a lot of projects. There's so many brands in the world, but as a person, you have to have standards because if you don't stand for anything, you fall
For
for
everything.
everything. So, as a person, I have my own standards. I have standards that I uphold as a result of my faith. There are some brands that do not align with my personal values as a person. So, if you approach me with such gigs, I may not take
Okay.
on such projects because they do not align with
With
my
your
they
personal
do not align with
values.
my personal values as a
Okay.
person. Or yes, and that's one condition on which I can reject the script. Another
Okay.
condition is if I feel like the compensation you're offering me is really not worth
Commensurate with what
it's really
you
not worth my
okay.
time. Exactly, it's not commensurate to my value.
Okay.
I'm definitely not going to do it. Sometimes I may even do it for free just because I love the direction, I love the story. I can offer to do it for free
Okay.
if you're not going to pay me. But because I love it, it aligns with my values, I'm happy to do it. But there are also cases where you take on some projects and you just know that it's really not worth it's really not worth commensurate to my value. Those are conditions where I turn down scripts.
Have you had cases where, or have you ever had the experience where you delivered a job and then they didn't feel like you were hitting the nail on the head? How did you handle such situations?
Also, that happens all the time. It happens all the time. The thing is, with voiceovers, you have brands, you're having to deal with brand managers and a number of people that are in a department and they have to all give their opinions for them to give their okay on the project. So, which is why I said it's in most cases I prefer that I get live feedback.
Okay.
That way we're getting all the inputs right there in the studio. So in those cases we are able to sort it right there. But if that's not available, what happens is what I believe is, before I was selected, you had listened to my voice samples.
Right.
So you understood that you wanted my service. So as such, we come to an understanding. I give you I give you a maximum number of revisions that I can do for that project. After which, if you're still not satisfied, you would have to pay me for my time because obviously we have both come to an agreement. These are part of the things you taught when you get training. Yes, you're meant to have an agreement with the client documented in your invoice so that there's no confusion
Right.
whatsoever. Ideally, the most ideal situation is that when you're recording, it's best to get live direction. That way, everybody's happy and you deliver perfectly. But if that's not possible, if you're self-directing, you want to be as explanatory, you want to be as concise about your standards as possible in your invoice so that there's no confusion.
Right, before we allow you go this morning, Wale, let's also tap into what do you think, what's the future of voiceover in Nigeria? Are you positive that the journey is indeed, very bright and also voiceover artists can begin to cash out in the future?
Of course. Like I said, the impact of voiceovers in Nigeria is still growing. So there's a huge impact. There's massive potential. There's so many untold stories, so many cartoons that are yet to be told. Recently, we've been having massive breakthroughs in terms of commercials. I said commercials, sorry, in terms of animations.
Okay.
There was the Iwaju project that was released about 2 years ago. Recently, Iyami was just released on a global scale with Nigerian voice actors. I was so happy about it because every single person on that project was Nigerian and it felt very homey as opposed to hearing this
Accent.
African accent, which is kind of generic and usually doesn't sound Nigerian. So
Right.
there's huge, massive potential for voiceover artists. Like I said earlier, don't focus on English, don't be restricted to English. Try as much as possible to learn your languages. The beauty of Africa is in our languages. So if you truly want to be relevant in the future, two things you have to be intentional about. One, you have to be intentional about building your brand as a voiceover artist, getting your voice out there, letting people know that you do voiceovers, you're about this, and then you now also want to diversify as much as possible. You would want to ensure that you're not restricted to doing one language.
Okay.
And you want to, and you also want to be equipped. You want to equip yourself with a number of skills.
Right.
If you do voiceovers, it's not bad if you also offer copywriting skills.
Okay.
If you know that you're good at writing, that's an extra service that would have been outsourced that you can offer.
Right.
To get more paid.
Right.
From the client.
Okay.
If you offer copywriting skills, you offer sound design skills, editing skills. Those are massive
additions. Right. Okay. I think.
If you want to be relevant in the years to come,
Right.
Those are things you should do.
All right, we'll have to leave this conversation here this morning. Thank you so much, Wale Bams, for finding time to speak with us. I'm on the program today. We truly appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Viva. Thank
All
you
right.
for having me.
Okay,
Bye.
then. Bye. Right, so we've been speaking with Wale this morning, and of course he's shared his thoughts with us on voiceover artistry and the facts that the future is really very bright for voiceover artists in Nigeria. It is a global trade. It is global. It is not a Nigerian thing.
No,
if you do voiceovers, and you know, there's one thing he said that really caught my fancy, and that is the fact that you must have your demo, you must have your selling point, so that at every point in time when you're asked to share, you're not saying, give me 1 minute.
Just like your CV.
Yes, it's just right there around you. But again, thank you, Wale, for sharing your thoughts with us on the program this morning. Any addition from you, Joy?
No.
No.
You said it all.
On the skill, on it. We'll take a quick break. When the conversation returns, our other conversation will be here. Remember, we also told you it's the International Day of the Boy Child. So we'll be celebrating the boys today. Remember, all men were boys. So, and there won't be...
the boy is
still in them. And, you know, we won't keep hearing, is it only you celebrate Girls' Day, you celebrate Mother's Day, you celebrate... So today is the day of International Day of the Boy Child. That conversation is after the short break.